All right, everyone, I think we're live on both platforms again. Yep, just got the confirmation. Good afternoon, everyone. Hopefully, you should have a larger turnout today now that it's not Black Friday anymore. But good evening, Anthony here with Puget Sound Stormwatch. Let's talk about some possible upcoming weather happenings very soon. Since, as you guys all know, it's been an extremely slow November and fall season so far. Like, almost disappointingly slow. So as usual, here's the current look at satellite imagery. I have isobars and radar animations overlaid on top of this. Deep low way out here in the Gulf of Alaska right now. We also have this ridge over the area as well, and that's currently putting a block on active weather around here. Now, we had a small system slide through today that sort of undercut the ridge up here and came in from the northwest, moving towards the southeast. S. Robert 1234 on YouTube. Kind of boring weather. Yeah, very boring weather. It's extremely slow right now, and it's almost infuriatingly slow since this is statistically our most active time of the year. But yeah, the system already came through today, generated some weak showers down here in the South Sound. Had some reports of light rain in Yelm and Eatonville, but that's really about it. Even had some light rain up here in Milton too, but like a trace of precipitation. Not much at all to talk about, that's for sure. Now, want to refresh this real quick because this is still from last night's showing. Let's look at the overall synopsis for the next 6 days according to the European forecast model, one of my personal favorites. That's the system that came through today. And another little weak system tries to cut through Monday night and Tuesday morning. Comes through real briefly. Some isolated showers possible around the area throughout the day Tuesday. And it looks like Wednesday, for the most part, we have another break. Then we're looking out towards the Thursday time frame right now. Fine weather at Husky Stadium today, says Julie, aka Mama Miyamoto. Yeah, the dogs couldn't get it done, but I think pretty much all of us saw this defeat coming. You know, we did finish with a winning record and are bowl eligible, so just see what bowl matchup we get. You know, all I gotta say is go dogs. So, yeah, the European and GFS models have been kind of hinting at a wet day around the area on Thursday. This would have precipitation off the coast by 7 a.m. on Thursday, the 4th, moving into the area sometime between 7 and 10 a.m. the same day. And it looks like initially the passes will get snow, but then it transitions back to rain for a little bit. That's probably because of a warm front coming in. And by the end of the run, Friday morning, we're still under the gun for some rain. Some of this starts out pretty heavy off the coast, but then sort of dies down as it moves in, with a few areas of drying around the Puget Sound throughout the morning time next Friday. So that's just this run of the European. Still a couple hours out from the next full run, the 360-hour run, the 0Z. So the 18Z is finished. This is the 144-hour run right here. Now the GFS gets a little more interesting, but then again, I have to put this disclaimer out there that the GFS isn't the superior model when it comes to extended range weather forecasting. The European usually takes the cake on that. So overall, pretty good agreement for Monday night and the Tuesday. It has a little bit less rain in the area Monday night. It kind of fills in through Tuesday morning, and same ordeal. You know, high elevation snow over the passes. Just be prepared for that. And then it has it drying out a little quicker Tuesday afternoon. And then the next system comes through Thursday afternoon. has some heavier rain in this and a little bit more of a sharp pressure gradient across the Puget Sound. So the GFS is trending a little more windy than what the European is showing on this one, at least initially. So, and then the next system comes through Friday afternoon. It's overall decent agreement between the two primary longer range weather models. And it just has our area getting soaked through the weekend. I've been talking about this on the subscriber page and the Patreon page as well, for those of you who are in the subscriber group, about how next weekend's looking a little more active than what we have been used to for the month of November, this November. But then we start getting into fantasy land here, and you're going to notice something really cool with this when it comes up. To go a little bit farther, see, look at that blue. Although this is most likely to not happen, so let me just pump the brakes on that real quick. It kind of has a little fantasy windstorm and snowstorm at the same time. This is peak American model fantasy here. So it has two little congealed areas of low pressure here, and then a tighter area of low pressure off the coast. And you notice we're still in the blue here too. This 95% that this will not happen. If we look at the temperatures over the area too, they're a little bit above freezing during this time, according to this forecast. But then it has some of that Arctic air dipping down. So the GFS has been kind of sold on this modified Arctic air to the north of us as being shown up here, but the European is not. Right now, it's really only the GFS deterministic. And I bet even if we were to go look at the GFS ensembles as well, the GEFS, then it's going to be a little bit less robust when it comes to temperatures. Kim Leonard on Facebook says, yeah, hope not. Yeah, it's not looking impressive on the GFS ensembles. Cooler than normal, yes, but it doesn't have that cool pool of Arctic air like the single run deterministic shows. So just another reason to sort of, back up on that and be like, all right, let's not let the fantasy get into our heads here. Still a long ways to go before we start making snow forecasts. Thank you guys on Facebook for 10 likes already. 4 likes over on YouTube. Hello everyone, good afternoon. Anthony here with Puget Sound Stormwatch as usual once again. Thank you for tuning in to another live stream. Just looking at some upcoming weather happenings since, it's been about the most boring November that I can remember when it comes to weather. See what the AI model shows. Yeah, the AI model's worse. The AI ensemble model is worse when it comes to this Arctic air up here. It's just not showing good agreement overall on the positioning and the strength of the Arctic air. But, let's go look at some shorter range models as well and change the parameters up a little bit. So we're just getting the 0Z NAM3KM to run. So far, it's only 41 out of 60 frames. And once that little system passes through today in the South Sound, it said someone sent stars for a moment, and then guess Facebook said never mind. All right. Yeah, anyways, once this system moves out, we're in for another dry Sunday around the area. So, pretty much perfect weather outside at Lumen Field for that upcoming Vikings game tomorrow. I will not be live streaming tomorrow. I'm going to be over most likely at my father's house to watch the game. So don't anticipate any live streams tomorrow. Monday, possibly, but I'm saying that with low confidence right now. And it's showing a mostly dry day Monday too. Maybe some passing showers to the north and west of us, but nothing that really sticks out like a sore thumb at the moment. So look at the lower res NAM regional that goes out to 84 hours. Okay, there we go. All right, Darcy Moffat, thank you for sending 50 stars. Very much appreciated. All right, so when is this supposed to happen? Colleen Martin on Facebook asks. Are you talking about the weather coming up? Because it's looking like it may be a little busy next weekend, but confidence is still pretty low on that. We're not expecting any big wins. Kim Leonard says, love your live. Thank you, Kim. So expecting some weather to come up Thursday and sometime this upcoming weekend as well. Not counting today and tomorrow. You know, a week ahead in the future. There's still a lot of details to iron out, and it probably won't be till later on in the week before we have more exact details. Once we get within about 60 hours or so, we can start to pinpoint some details on the winds, if there are going to be any winds, and potential rainfall amounts as well. You know, we're still pretty far out from that, so we're not even sure if the weather is going to be a little bit inclement next weekend. But what this NAM regional model is showing is the passing showers, again, like the European and GFS were showing, coming through late Monday night in the early Tuesday morning. So a little bit wet around the area Tuesday morning by the looks of it, but again, nothing that we're not used to, just some passing showers by the looks of it. So it only has between 0.1 to 0.2 inches for most of the Puget Sound here. You know, a little bit more, up towards a quarter inch or higher as you get up into North Snohomish and Skagit counties, and a little bit less here in Whatcom County as well, but a little, like right around the same for the North Coast and for the Strait of Juan de Fuca area. And a little bit for the South Coast towards Pacific County too, but not much for the Central Coast and Southwest Interior. There's really light rainfall amounts, and some of this could fall in the form of snow up here in the passes too. So yeah, this was showing the showers through today. And if we go to look at the hazards viewer, right now this is just showing current wind around the area. Hardly anything. A little bit breezy up in the foothills right now. And getting up there in the Fraser River outflow region up here, this is expected to kick up to about 30 to possibly 40 miles per hour tonight up here in Whatcom and San Juan counties. And I know that Randy is going live with Whatcom County weather tonight too at 8:30, so he'll talk quite a bit more about this. But of course, the primary coverage area for this page is 100% the immediate Puget Sound area. The Puget Sound lowlands, that's the primary area. Secondary area goes out to the rest of Western Washington, excluding the counties covered by the National Weather Service in Portland. So this includes Whatcom and Skagit counties up here. I'll cover that usually on a secondary basis. I usually leave it to the crew of Whatcom County Weather to cover it up here. And the Whidbey Island weather page, which does a really good job of covering Island County as well. But yeah, my primary area is the immediate Puget Sound. So that's my number one area of concern. You know, counties in Western Washington that are covered by Portland include Pacific, Wahkiakum, Cowlitz, Clark, and Skamania counties. So this whole area here is covered by NWS Portland. That is sort of the tertiary zone. So third behind the Puget Sound and the rest of Western Washington. But let's go look at some precipitation amounts over the last 6 hours or so. All right, and then there's Ken Moffitt with 100 stars sent. Thank you so much, Ken, for your donation. Much appreciated. Ignore this station. That is a glitch. That is 100% a glitch. So imagine that, 5.13 inches over 8 hours. Yeah, that's a bust. But this is showing all the stations that recorded anything more than a trace of precipitation today around the area. And it's pretty spotty around here. So not very many areas here in the immediate Puget Sound got any rain today, at least any measurable precipitation. Even the coast missed out on a lot of this, and nothing along the Strait of Juan de Fuca or over the islands. Got a little more than a trace here in western Whatcom County, and some over King County as well. But outside of that, like, nothing to run home about whatsoever. And then a little bit down here in the southwest interior in the I-5 corridor between Centralia and Olympia. But outside of that, it was an extremely spotty threat of rainfall today. Is there a long-range look? Yeah, I went over that about 10 to 15 minutes ago, but you might have missed it. But yeah, I'll go over it one more time for you. So let's go to the 12Z European, so we can go out to 360 hours. And I'm going to keep it here at the regional level as well, but I'll show you what the previous full run of the European showed, and then compare it to the GFS. That was today's system coming through. And then Monday night and early Tuesday morning's little weak system coming through. And a little bit of a stronger system, by the looks of it, Thursday into Friday. Featuring what looks like a pretty strong cold front up over North Vancouver Island that starts to lose strength as it moves down towards the southeast direction. So the flow is going to be out of the northwest, with the positioning of the jet stream and the ridge offshore. It's going to be northwesterly flow aloft compared to the usual southwesterly flow aloft that we usually see during this time of the year. Farmer's Almanac thing. I can't tell you the last time I've looked at the Farmer's Almanac, so not 100% sure about the relation to that. I think the last time I looked at that, I was a little kid. I haven't paid attention to that since. Then the Europeans picking up on a larger, like really sharp cold front. This is all the way into next weekend. So this is sort of what the models have been picking up on for some activity next weekend. But the timing's still bouncing around quite a bit. So then it brings this cold front through sometime between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. on Sunday, according to this model. And then the back end of that comes through, and it could bring a little bit of a localized pressure gradient with it that could kick up the wind a little bit. Nothing major by the looks of it, though. Keith Capolero, yes, I was just mentioning that about 10 minutes ago, that Randy's going live. Came on a little bit after I said that. But, yeah, it's all good. So then this is where the uncertainty starts to kick up. See, because we have a really nice pressure gradient with this front that comes through, and it brings heavy snow to most of the mountain passes as it comes through. This would be a quick-moving system sometime in the middle of the second week of December. This is the morning of Wednesday, December 10th. So, and then the systems start coming in rapid succession after that. So there's another sharp cold front all the way out to the following weekend, Saturday the 13th. And then that's the end of that run. So several chances of heavy mountain snow, lowland rain, and possibly some wind coming up. But right now, confidence is low. This will definitely change. Keith, it's all right. No problem at all. Still a lot of wild cards to really narrow out and nitpick here. But it's going to be a number of days before we start to get some clarity with this setup here. So yeah, that's the current look at the European extended. Compare that to the GFS. You know, I wish, like Weather Bell, I wish Pivotal Weather had a side-by-side comparison. Unfortunately, they do not. And for this, we can go look at the full 18Z. So we don't have to rely on the 12Z data. We can go to the newest data set here. Now, the GFS is lower resolution than the European, so it's not going to have these well-defined features, terrain features mainly, that the European shows in comparison. Even then, the European is still much lower resolution than any of the higher res short range forecast models, but you have to be within a couple of days to look at those. Overall, the timing looks pretty consistent with this. So both models agree on a system coming through on Thursday. Again, kind of watching that pressure gradient there for some wind possible as we go into Friday morning. And then this is where the disagreement begins to happen. Yeah, Jennifer6984 on YouTube says womp womp. Yeah, womp womp if you're an active weather fan, for sure. Signs are a little bit better in the extended, but we're still way too far from drawing any conclusions. See, and this is where we start going pure fantasy. So you watch what happens. Watch the color of the rainfall that happens here. Boom, goes to snow. And then, boom, circulates a series of really compact systems off the coast here. And it just parks it and then brings it on the coast, and that would bring a lot of heavy snowfall with it. But we're still way too far out. Adam Ferris says Euro is almost spot on usually, but even so it can bounce. I like it when it gets closer with 48 hours out. Yeah, Adam makes an excellent point there. Even 48 hours out can bust sometimes. You know, a couple of events ago, even the high-res imagery less than an hour out completely bombed the forecast. So it just tells you you can't always rely on the weather models. This is where nowcasting in real time is an extreme sport, because that's really where you're going to narrow out the details. Although you're not going to have a lot of warning time, you can at least sort of narrow it down to the day and the window, but not necessarily the exact timing several days out. That is the power of nowcasting. And that's why I'm here, to share rapid fire updates with all of you guys. Jennifer says, no snow for my birthday. Yeah, it's way too soon to start talking snow, unfortunately. We're still miles and miles away from doing that. Now, I see a lot of pages starting to mention snow around here, but unfortunately, it's just not credible right now. It's far from it. So let me show you the differences between the last run as well. The differences are considerable. It's even showing the strong system riding up the coast from south to north too. That's really the only thing that's even a little bit consistent. Kind of the location and the strength of this offshore storm as we go out to Monday the 15th. But that is going to change as well. Whew, geez. Imagine if that was a few more miles to the north and west. That would bring a nasty day to the Puget Sound on Friday the 12th, but that's almost certainly not going to happen. Yeah, this is entirely the fantasy forecast here. And the differences between model to model are considerable. See, yesterday 0Z was showing some snow around here. It was even showing some heavy snow on Saturday the 13th of December at 10 a.m. But take this with a grain of salt. Look at the erratic changes between the model runs. Like, nothing showed this on the 11th before. So the days are going to bounce around. The strength of these offshore storms are going to bounce around. The timing's going to vary considerably from run to run. This GFS model, I swear, it's extremely unrealistic. It does have its wins from time to time. As Keith says, the fantasy forecast, yes. This is just a peak of what could happen, but most likely will not happen. This is only assuming we have that cold pool to our north, and not even too far to our north, like literally just north of Vancouver, BC. It just takes one little surface low to turn on that Fraser River outflow, and then boom, we have our Arctic front in, and a source of moisture off the coast that will bring in just enough moisture to not have the marine air clash with the Arctic air. That's how you get a snowstorm around here, but those conditions lining up perfectly are far from few rare. So yeah, it's gonna be a lot of monitoring in the next few days, but just forget I ever showed you this, because this will be a thing of history almost certainly by tomorrow. But that's just a sneak peek at the upcoming fantasy forecast. One model I don't use too often too is the Canadian. This is the Canadian deterministic, the GDPS, also called the GEM model. It's also agreeing with kind of a breezy period next Sunday, the 7th. So the big three of the models, the Canadian, American, and European, are kind of trying to nail down something about a week out for the December 6th or December 7th timeline. So just something noteworthy to put there. Also, pretty good agreement with something happening Thursday and the Friday as well, but it's too soon to be talking winds, rain, or mountain snow. If it keeps up for the next few days, I'll be putting out a post probably Monday night or Tuesday morning talking about Thursday, just when we get into that range of high-res model guidance. But still a few days out, so nothing super significant to talk about, but the possibility is there. I do have to say that. The possibility of inclement weather in the near future is certainly there. Now, it looks like our NAM model is finished. See if anything starts popping up towards the Tuesday time frame. Just goes in the 4 a.m. on Tuesday, and so now we can see the shower activity in a little bit clearer detail compared to what was showing up on the other deterministics. This is the high-res model guidance now. And it's just showing really hit-or-miss showers here in the North Sound. Some of it spreading down into the South Puget Sound. But just overall, not too much activity happening, and almost no mountain snow during this period too. This would be Tuesday at 4 a.m. since the model goes out to 60 hours right now. Let's go see what the 0Z HER is saying. Yeah, compare that to what the HER is showing. The HER is a little bit more intense on some of the rainfall, and it only goes out to 48 hours. So it only goes out to 4 p.m. on Monday right now. But the HER model, the high resolution rapid refresh, see the HER right here, usually has a habit of overdoing rain coverage and strength, so most likely won't have showers this heavy. Now, I'm leaning more towards what the NAM is showing for this range. See, that seems a little more believable. Scattered little hit or miss showers throughout the day on Tuesday, or throughout the afternoon time Monday, like really late evening into early morning hours on Tuesday. That's the time frame I'm trying to portray here for these showers. Thank you everyone for the likes on Facebook. We're at 21 now. And 9 likes on YouTube. Currently 7 of you guys watching on YouTube and 10 of you guys on Facebook. Appreciate you guys tuning in tonight. Just wanted to see if anyone who missed the live stream yesterday wanted to tune in for today's live stream. Yeah, as Keith Capolero on YouTube said, hit or miss showers for sure. Certainly looks like the case. Let's go look at the preliminary forecast for winds. See, picking up that Fraser River outflow tonight and early tomorrow morning. Some areas eclipsing 35-mile-per-hour gusts out of the northeast, and this extends all the way down into the San Juan Islands as well. So western Whatcom County and most of San Juan County. Then it really starts to pull back and cool down as we go into tomorrow afternoon. Even showing a little bit of Columbia River Gorge outflow into the Portland area as well. But other than that, see, a little bit breezy along the coast with that next system coming in, but it's not going to translate to very much around the Puget Sound. You may have a light breeze throughout the day, but that's really about it. It's going to be a little breezier on the east slopes of the Cascades, down towards areas like Cle Elum, Thorpe, and Ellensburg. But really, that's all that we're looking forward to after the turn of the weekend. Anything far from impressive, especially this time of the year. Let's look at the upper air pattern over the next 6 days around this area. So this is North America. We're going to go look at height anomalies at 500 millibars, 18,000 feet. See, that's our little system clipping the ridge today. That's the ridge axis over the Gulf of Alaska right now. So watch the behavior of this ridge over the next 6 days. See, that system swings through, and then the ridge fills back in over the area, and then that next system clips over that ridge, moving from northwest to southeast as we go into Tuesday morning. See, and then that ridge never really leaves over the next 6 days. It's going to hang around and persevere. That's going to really keep a lid on a lot of the stronger weather systems over the next 6-day period. But what we can't see in this model run is after that. So that's where we switch back to the previous 12Z, and we're going to have some changes here. But overall, the forecast remains consistent between the two model runs. So then it has the ridge sort of backing off and allowing more of this troughing to come through next weekend, with the potential for the ridge to back off entirely down here and bring a little bit of a stronger system. Looks like the Sunday afternoon time frame, but then guess what? The ridge is right back on our doorstep after that. There's not a lot of cold air, like Keith says. Yeah, the cold air stays well to the east. You know, the system that's bringing the snow to parts of the Midwest and Great Lakes region right now, that's where all the cold air is aimed, and that's because the jet stream is way too far to the east right now. It's even showing a system also coming through during the Wednesday time frame as well, Wednesday the 10th of December. But then our friend the ridge is still kind of hanging on for dear life here. See, and then at the end of this run, you notice it has a much stronger trough signature as we start going into the morning of Sunday the 14th. So we'll have to watch the next full run here of the European once the 0Z begins to render. Could give us some critical details for the middle December timeframe. But still, that ridge redevelops and amplifies again over the Gulf of Alaska. So that could have a long-term influence on our weather pattern too. So we may swing this stronger trough through in the middle of December, but most likely this ridge is going to be right on its doorstep yet again, which could bring another period of stable and calm weather after the turn of the halfway point this next month. Outside of a couple of these weak weather systems and the occasional stronger system like this one coming through, even this isn't super strong, but it's stronger than anything we've seen this time of the year so far. Yeah, like Keith says, it can change. And if you're a snow lover, follow what the GFS is showing. The GFS is actually showing that cold air being in a favorable place when we go into December. But the agreement looks pretty good over the next week between the models. Then we start to this is where we start getting the disagreement, is the beginning of the second week of December. So he's showing this colder air and trough really piling up here over Western Canada, even trying to peak down into the Pacific Northwest here. See, this would be your signal that you need for snow here. But the model I'm using right now is far from the most reliable when it comes to this, especially out at this range. This is over 10 days in the future here. But see, the jet stream is way down to our south in this. So when the jet streams to the south, it allows this cold air to begin to sink down over the area. This is what you would need for widespread snow chances. And I say chances very sparingly because you need other parameters to begin going your way. Adam Ferris on Facebook, not seeing a really wild polar vortex yet. Yeah, we're still seeing some periods of sudden stratospheric warming, which unfortunately I'm not able to show you guys here on Pivotal Weather. I was having issues with my Weather Bell Premium subscription, and I was never able to get it renewed. Something between the bank and the Weather Bell site, which is very unfortunate because I really could use that during this time of the year. But we're just going to have to settle with the utilities that we have here. But yeah, not a strong polar vortex signature quite yet. It's probably too soon in the season to start talking about that. And if you pay attention to the MJO or Madden-Julian oscillation, we're making a speed run into phase 8 out of 8. And then it goes back into 1 after that. And 1 and 2 of that oscillation would be much more favorable for cooler air over here. But it looks like it's going to pause in phase 8 of the MJO, which is not favorable for cooler air here on the West Coast, or overall just the Pacific Northwest. So I think the GFS is being way too generous with the cold air here west of the Rockies. See, that would be utterly ridiculous. These heights here, that is 510 decameters for the height. So the contours here are in trying to figure out how to describe this to you guys, because it's a little confusing for me as well. But anyways, the atmosphere in general is volatile. It's always in a fluid state, and the heights of each level of the atmosphere vary based on location around the globe. So heights can be lower and they can be higher, or they can be right around neutral where they should be for this time of the year. That's why we call these an anomaly. So see, this is like literally off the charts for the level of anomaly here. This is over 40 decameters below normal here. And a decameter is 10 meters. So if you were to multiply that by 510, then you have 5,100 meters here, which is around 16,000 feet or so above ground level. So these are showing low heights, which is indicative of troughing or lower pressure, which is also associated with rising air, which you need rising air in order for precipitation to form. You know, this is also associated with cooler temperatures usually too. While all of the opposite can be said for an upper level ridge here. You know, higher heights, sinking air, and usually warmer and drier air masses underneath these. Usually. But even the weather can break the rules sometimes. This is showing an incredible 501 decameters right there. It's just a sign of a really, really strong trough. If that were to verify, but it almost certainly will not. So you translate that to surface level pressure and you have this massive 982 millibar low off the coast. But like I said, take that with an extreme grain of salt. Keith says it's 39 degrees at my place up here. He's talking about the Bellingham area. Yeah, with that Fraser River outflow, it's going to cool you guys off, but it's also going to dry you guys out quite a bit too. So the chances of fog up there are low as we go into the morning time, but we're seeing some chances of fog down here around the South Sound. And I can show you guys this as well on the high-res imagery. But chances of fog, some of it could be freezing as well. Chances of freezing fog around the South Sound tomorrow. We can really see this on the visibility map. Now, the more of the color you see, the lower the visibility is. See, it's starting to show the visibilities drop down here in the South Sound and Southwest Interior as we go into tomorrow afternoon. And then that fog really starts to fill in around the open waters as we go into Monday. And it's weird too because it's showing these visibilities being low throughout the day. So we may have some really stubborn fog if this model is correct. Especially around the lower valleys in the sheltered areas away from the water. But you notice too, over the waters it is also showing this marine fog around here. Now, could this be a bias from the model? It's possible. Let's see, it's just showing a visibility of nothing. See, 0 miles. At 10 p.m. on Monday. Now I want to see what the HER model shows for this aspect. See, the HER has kind of a different scheme here. It doesn't show the fog as intense on the HER tomorrow. During the morning time on Monday, it does show dense fog along the I-5 corridor between Castle Rock and Lacey. So just a heads up for any commuters leaving early Monday morning for work. That is a possibility. That cool air does pull here in the South Sound, yes, especially in the river valleys. Like the Puyallup, you know, the Carbon, the Green, the Snoqualmie, you name it. That is usually where all the fog builds up around this area. Now when we go to cloud cover, it doesn't show the fog as well on the cloud cover. Let's see, it does show the cloud cover from this little system impacting us today, moving in and hanging around for a little bit too. These could be in the form of high clouds, so we may have some low, dense fog combined with some high clouds moving over the area with those next few little systems trying to clip us. While they may be drier, They will be cloudier compared to what we've seen. You know, I know a lot of us enjoyed a pretty nice day yesterday. I know that it was enjoyable seeing the sun out the window again, especially after the deluge of rain we had Thanksgiving night. Let's see here. Let's go look at dew points. This will tell us how saturated the air mass is down towards the surface. You know, it's pretty dry up here where the Fraser River outflow is occurring, and most of the moisture hangs towards the river valleys or off the coast. Neat to see that there's a fog model. Kind of, sort of. It's a visibility model, but you can usually use it to identify where fog is going to form. But yeah, you notice throughout the day on Sunday, it holds a lot of this moisture into the immediate Puget Sound area. So the darker the colors are, the drier it's going to be. The lighter the colors are down here, then the more moist it's going to be. And see, through Monday afternoon, it still has a lot of that moisture hanging around, so it may take some time for this fog to burn off if it does form. And for temperatures, let's wait for the rest of this model to run real fast. See, with that Fraser River outflow going, some areas getting near freezing or below freezing up here in Whatcom County. And you can see the cold pools over some of the areas down here in the South Sound as well, mainly the river valleys. Then Sunday afternoon, it has us going back into the mid to upper 40s. And then not looking as cold Monday morning. So the threat of freezing fog is much lower Monday morning than it is tomorrow morning. Let's see, it has some areas at or below freezing here along the Nisqually. So just as a little heads up, some freezing fog possible as the sun comes up tomorrow morning. That's just according to one model and one run, though. So, quick little disclaimer for you guys there. Compare that to what the NAM's showing. The NAM appears to be a little more aggressive on this tomorrow morning. It has a lot of areas of freezing, even up in the hills here, too. Like, my area is right around where this cursor is right here. And even that is right at the freezing marker at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. It really just depends on your model of choice, but you have to understand the biases that these models show too. Andrew Christensen, 7629 on YouTube. SeaTac reported 0.37 inches on Thursday. It was pretty wet around the area. I actually should check how much precipitation my station picked up, but I haven't yet. Ooh. Sorry guys, I've been sitting for quite a long time. But yeah, the NAM 3 cam's a little more aggressive with this cold air than the HERM model. Even has some areas a few degrees below freezing, and these are all in Fahrenheit. Going into early Monday morning. See, down here, the I-5 corridor between Olympia and Chehalis, including Chehalis, Centralia, and Grand Mound, could be below freezing early Monday morning. Some of that freezing air hanging around until the sun really begins to rise on Monday. Even then, it doesn't have a lot of areas breaking above 40 degrees that day, too. But this is not the Arctic air that we're talking about that we need for widespread snow. This is mainly what's called radiational cooling. This is different from the Arctic air coming in a form of cold air advection. So two completely different principles of cooling going on here. Once again, radiational cooling is what we're seeing here. And that's just the warm air escaping from the ground back into the atmosphere, compared to cool air being driven in by an outside source, such as the Fraser River outflow. That's what we need like 95% of the time to get enough cold air in here for an Arctic outbreak. But not expecting that anytime in the next 2 weeks. So let me just put a little pause on that right there. And notice that warmer, mild air off the coast too. That's our next little system that's going to come in around that time. By the end of this run, Monday and the Tuesday, going to bring some much more mild air in from northwest of us, with quite a bit of marine influence. So a much more warmer, moist air pattern coming in Monday and Tuesday. Check to see if any stations have added on. May have gotten a few stations picking up a trace. About 0.13 inches down here in Ilwaco near Cape Disappointment. Ignore that. That's an obvious outlier. But not a lot of stations picked up this precipitation today. It's very, very isolated in nature. Wind gusts at the moment. Not seeing very much. It's a little breezy down here in the foothill areas. Still have a little bit of that east wind around the area, but nothing of concern right now. Gusting up to just shy of 20 miles per hour downstream of that Fraser River outflow area too. So this outflow should pick up tonight and get up towards 35, possibly 40 miles per hour out of the northeast direction up here, north and west of Bellingham. This includes the San Juan Islands as well, which are downstream of this. It'd be colder and drier air being advected in from Canada with this, but only temporarily. It's going to start backing off as we go into tomorrow afternoon. Thirsty today. Joanne Miner says no wind in Yelm. Yeah, some people told me it was a little breezy down there this morning. And I can pull up the max wind gusts since midnight around the area. And so we did hit 40 a couple times here around North Bend. Got up to 36 down here in Canely. And 34 in southeast Enumclaw. Really outside of that, as I anticipated, a really subpar east wind event. So nothing out of the ordinary here. It's right around where the models showed. 40 is a little above what the European was showing, but it still did an overall good job on the spread of winds here. So this is the Tanner Crossing North Bend station run by the Department of Transportation, and it updates every 15 minutes, so we can go back in history and see when they hit 40 miles per hour. First time I've seen here was at 3:16 a.m. this morning. Then they hit it again at 5:31. Then they hit it an additional time at 7:31 this morning. I'm not seeing anything higher than that right now. Yeah, it looks like they hit 40 miles per hour 3 times here at the Tanner Crossing station. Just your little factoid of the day. Cheryl Marie, good evening to you. Thank you for tuning in again on short notice. Still haven't figured out why I'm not seeing the airport stations on here anymore. It's like after this station hit 41 miles per hour the other day with a northeasterly wind, it just took off a whole bunch of station coverage around here. Not sure what that's about. Might be an issue with the NWS site, possibly. Let's see, it's not showing the SeaTac station anymore. Nonetheless, no big deal right now. Look at the visible satellite over the area. Yeah, this was our system that came through earlier, brought some showers down here to parts of the South Sound and the North Sound. Moving from northwest to southeast. Now, any of the precipitation has moved over to the east side of the Cascades and is affecting areas around the Blue Mountains right now. See some additional upper level cloud cover moving in. So it may be pretty difficult to see the stars tonight if you guys want to go out and do some stargazing. On tonight of all nights, it would not be a good night to do so. This next system's going to stay offshore, so don't take any, let's not get too hyped about this. There's a ridge in place. It's hard to see on the surface level map, but there is a pretty strong ridge in place that's keeping the weather under control right now. Okay, I'm on the wrong model for this. Let's do this one. Yeah, it looks like we're right under the cusp of this jet stream right now. That's what was driving in the system today. Then that's going to pretty quickly move off to the east, and then there's our ridge signature right there. See the clockwise moving winds about this high pressure center? Textbook ridge signature right there, where the jet streams to our north. And as a result, any of the Arctic air built up over Canada is moving well east of the Rockies right now. East of this line as seen here. But then when you see these dips here, these are going to be the next systems that move through the area over the next week period. Even then, they're going to be fighting that ridge quite a bit. See, and then we'll be under the jet stream here. But notice how there's no atmospheric river. Even if there is, this is marginal at best. But yeah, no indications of any atmospheric rivers over the next week. Which again, if you're a rain hater, then that's a good sign to see. This is kind of a weak little Pineapple Express here, but it's going to have a minimal or zero effect on our weather over the next week or so. So a little bit of a better signature for parts of Alaska and BC, north of Haida, Hawaii, but by the time it sags down here, it's going to be cut off by that ridge anyways. Anytime now, the 0Zs should begin to render. The GFS will start first, followed by the European, but it's probably not going to be till around 8:30 or so tonight. So yeah, now that the fantasy talk's out of the way, does anyone else have any questions they'd like to bring up? Can check out some ensemble models as well. So as it hits the high, it dies out. I suppose you could say that. You know, that high is going to be dominating our weather for some time. And you can see the same signature here on the ensemble members as well. So all of the reds are signatures of a ridge, higher heights. And a little bit of the blue making it into the area, but confidence is super low on there right now. There's a considerable spread in sea level pressures. So if the ensembles are right, then this ridge here is going to be fighting for its life as you go into December. So ensembles are showing somewhat decent agreement that the ridge is going to start breaking down as we go into the middle of December. That's going to allow these weather systems to start to make close approaches to the area. What does the wind look like for this upcoming week? Minuscule. I'll say that with high confidence right now, minuscule. So we can look at the ensemble averages here. And right now, for average wind gusts around the area, it has no more than 30 miles per hour for parts of the South Sound, Kitsap Peninsula area, and some of the Olympics and Strait of Juan de Fuca. This is for Friday afternoon with that upcoming system I was talking about. So go off into Tuesday, the European ensemble forecast here has some stronger breezes. Again, nothing out of the ordinary that we've seen for this time of the year. By the time we get out into this range, around the December 9th to December 10th range, most of the leaves, if not all of the leaves, are going to be off of the trees already. So therefore, wind damage is going to be harder to come by with wind gusts in the 30 mile per hour range compared to earlier on in the season. But nothing impressive showing up on the ensemble forecast right now. For the European, it takes 50 different members, gives them different starting conditions, and then averages them out into one average forecast as seen here. So this is the average of 50 different singular forecasts going on at the same exact time. See what the GFS ensemble has to show, the American. The American shows even less. Just overall not impressive whatsoever. It's almost sad how boring the weather has been this November. And just overall, outside of that one windstorm that hit in October, there really has not been any sort of active weather to come by. Seeing a couple new comments coming in on Facebook. So yeah, Mark 12 essay on YouTube. Wind does not look like a concern right now for this next week. Even if we go back to the deterministic models here. And it's picking up a little bit now. But then again, I'm not on the right model. So let's make sure I'm on the most up-to-date model here. I almost made a whoopsie right there. Already a report of fog in East Olympia. Just got an update from a follower on that. So fog is beginning there. See, this was sort of the more active weather this weekend I was talking about, but even then it's minuscule compared to any of our normal fall wind events that we're used to around here. What a lot of people don't know is that meteorological winter starts on December 1st, while astronomical winter is, I can't recall the exact date of when astronomical winter is. It's probably December 20th or 21st, but someone please do feel free to correct me on that. But meteorological winter is when it begins to feel like winter. And that is coming up starting Monday. So showing it a little breezy around the Central Sound right now in the 18Z. It wasn't showing it as much in the 12Z. And it wasn't showing it at all in the 0Z. So not a lot of good agreement right now. So this forecast confidence is like bare minimum low for this area. Okay, Keith says December 21st. Thank you for the clarification. Even the Fraser River outflow is not looking good next week, says Keith. Yeah, and it's all thanks to this offshore ridge that's really moderating our weather big time. You know, as I showed before, it shows some of these systems clipping into the ridge a bit from the north side of it, but nothing really penetrating it. Yeah, Adam Ferris Facebook says 20th or 21st. Keith says it's the 21st, so I'm going to go with Keith's word on this. William Gatlin 25, just now signing on. Hope you're having a good night. Little breezy here in Enumclaw, starting to dwindle off for the evening. Thank you, William, for the check-in. Much appreciated. Yeah, the night's going good so far. It's been kind of another low-key day around these parts. You know, I'm still feeling the Thanksgiving dinner kind of moving around in me, so... you know, I haven't been too active much, but I'm going to be changing that this next week. You know, I've had kind of an off week when it comes to physical fitness and eating habits. You know what I mean? It shouldn't be enough to hopefully go back on my progress that I've made this November, but just a little setback, you know, a little bit of a mental setback. And again, the calm weather during this time of the year really doesn't help. Yeah, if it was more active, I'd be more motivated to take care of business. Since I do consider this to be my job right now. Baby.boo, hello. That's the holiday season wrapped up in the one, sir. Diets and holidays are generally quite hard to mix together. Yeah, you said it. I'm expecting a little bump in the progress come Christmas and New Year's time too, but after that, it should be game on. Probably have to end up going back to work here in January too, which I don't want to do, but if I have to do, then it's got to be done. Yeah, I usually don't like talking about finances when it comes to outside of the page stuff, but you know, I'm openly transparent with the audience, so the things that I know, for the most part, you guys also know. If that makes any sense, what I'm trying to say. All right, let's see. YouTube, 7 people watching still, and 12 likes at the moment. Just about to hit 50 views. Thank you, guys. Most of you guys have left on Facebook, but that's okay. But 35 likes on Facebook. Thank you guys again for reaching that milestone. And of course, shout out to everyone who donated earlier. You know, without you guys, this wouldn't be possible. That's the truth to it. Ever thought about doing some live storm chasing here in Washington? Oh, absolutely. Unfortunately, I'm not in a good spot financially to do any regular storm chasing. And my vehicle needs a lot of work before I do any longer term storm chasing. You know, I've got a fuel injector that's going out, and I've also got a wheel bearing that's starting to make some noise in what sounds like my front driver's side wheel. That's eventually going to need some attention, but judging by how things are going right now, it's probably not going to be till spring or summertime that I can get that addressed. I have no frost in Ladysmith yet. GFS for the past few days has consistently shown a decent amount of snow around the 12th and 13th for the lowlands. That is true, but it is the GFS we're talking about. I don't take the GFS seriously unless it lines up precisely with what the European's showing. That's when I start to really take it seriously. Yeah, Will says, yes, you need a safe, appropriate vehicle for driving into heavy weather. Yeah, my vehicle's 33 years old and certainly showing its age. I do all my own work on my vehicle, and I've been through, I've been through a lot of money, a lot of time, and a lot of labor to keep this vehicle in running condition. And it's my all-purpose vehicle, but right now with the fuel injector issue, the motor's working extra hard just to get up and down the street, if you know what I mean, because it goes in and out of running on 6 or 5 cylinders. So I'm hoping maybe a fuel injector cleaning does it justice, because I have all of the tools and materials to clean fuel injectors and spark plugs and the whole 9 yards. You know, I've saved up and built up my collection of tools over the years that I've done all this work. So it usually makes it a piece of cake for the most part. But if it's a fuel injector showing resistance in the circuit, then the whole fuel injector is going to have to be replaced. And usually when you do fuel injectors, you replace them in a set. But I'd have to do a number of tests. William says, if you ever need a hand, head on out to Enumclaw. I'd be glad to assist with vehicle repairs. Thank you very much for the offer, William. I do appreciate it. Maybe in the future, but for right now, so far, I've got a handle on what I need right now. You know, but once again, I do appreciate the support. And if anyone knows any services that are willing to sponsor Puget Sound Stormwatch and help us out, do feel free to let me know if you know anyone. I was watching one of the storm chasers. Their vehicle was losing electrical powers. Yeah, that reminds me too, I also need a battery. My battery's starting to go flat. It's going on 3 years old here soon. I believe this was my warranty replacement that I just had too. Because I remember I started driving this vehicle in 2018 regularly. I put a battery in then. And then I believe I got a new battery in 2020. Had to replace it in 2021 under warranty. And then that battery lasted till 2023. And then I had to get a whole new battery and whole new warranty in 2023, but that warranty is already void. So that kind of puts me in a hole there too. You know, batteries usually only last 2 to 3 years. And that's been about the lifespan of my batteries that I've gotten. You know, I go with Duralast batteries. So probably different than some of those higher end batteries. Like if I got an Optima red top, it would be a no-brainer. That thing would be good for however many years. But it's out of the budget right now. Now you have me wondering, what kind of vehicle is this? It's a 1992 Nissan Pathfinder with 4-wheel drive. Let me see if I can pull up a photo for you guys of it real quick. I can try here on Facebook. So this was the most recent photo that I have on my Facebook. This was from an ice storm in 2022. December 23rd to be exact, covered in icicles. It's got a roof rack, CB antenna, a horn that doesn't work, a bunch of light bars, which also currently don't work. Having some electrical problems myself. It's just some things need to be rewired. But yeah, this is a look at what I call the storm chasing rig. I've been on a couple of storm chases over the years, mainly 2019. I remember I went up to Redmond one time for a thunderstorm setup that didn't quite materialize. But I still was able to get some lightning and some thunder during those events. I was down in Puyallup one time, heard a little thunder with that. And then I went up to Maple Valley one time where there was some pretty crazy lightning in 2019. There's my moderator. Welcome Sonia, everybody, on YouTube. We missed you yesterday. But no major concern there. So yeah, the tires on this thing are over 21 years old, going on 22 years old now. They still have pretty decent tread, which is amazing. A little bit of dry rot though. But unfortunately, pretty much everything's out of the budget right now. Sonia said, welcome in everyone. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and ring that bell if you're on YouTube. So yeah, that's a look at my storm chasing vehicle, which is also my daily driver. Let me just make sure it didn't boot the stream here after switching to my personal Facebook. Okay, I think we're still live on Facebook. Unfortunately, I lost my live screen after doing that. Probably wasn't the smartest thing to do, but not a bad car. Sounds like it's still roadworthy. Yeah, it still drives well. It has been driving well. It just needs some fixes here and there. As long as I'm careful with the transmission too, then everything should be fine. Because the transmission does like to slip when it warms up. Alright. Good to see that my Facebook Live is still going. Okay, good. I was able to pull the screen back up. Awesome. Yeah, Sonia, that's okay. No problem. Moderating for other chasers. And nice vehicle, thank you. Yeah, there we go. I got my monitoring screen back up. I'm just happy it didn't kill the Facebook stream when I switched profiles like that. I do see we have a surge of likes on Facebook, up to 36. Thank you guys for that. Yeah, thank you guys for the recent surge in coffee donations. Much appreciated. If you guys would like to consider a one-time donating, okay. Still live. Thank you for letting me know. Going to put your logos on the doors. I've been thinking about it, but the paint is original to the vehicle, over 33 years old and worn out, and I'd rather either restore the paint or do a wrap, a vinyl wrap, before I do any logo customizations. I know around the vehicle, I do have my social medias, which is pretty cool. I got those stickers a few years back. A lot of the stickers I put on my vehicle over the years have sustained a lot of ultraviolet light damage. So those are eventually going to have to be replaced. But once again, kind of out of the budget right now. You know, and when it comes to the budget, you know, the truth is, I'd say if 1/8 of the total followers on this page were to pitch in $1 a month, everything would be covered. Everything. Even the expenses to keep the roof over my head to do these live streams full time would all be covered. But I'm not expecting that much generosity at one point, you know. And I'm extremely grateful for everyone who has helped pitch in over the last few months of being full time. It's the only reason why I'm still able to do this. Even if it's tight financially, I'm still able to do this because of all of you guys here right now. And I'm beyond grateful for that. Just looking at some wind gusts right now. Not much different than when I last checked. It's still a little breezy up here in foothills. It can refresh up here. Yeah, still waiting for that Fraser River outflow to kick on up here over Whatcom County. It's probably going to be a little bit closer to later tonight, early tomorrow morning, before we really start to get these Fraser River outflow gusts out of the northeast. Usually how this happens is we get a pressure gradient casted on this river valley here, and the winds have to take the area of least resistance out. So the area of least resistance is downstream in the Fraser River Valley. And of course, thanks to the hills and mountains here of Whatcom County, you know, it really aims this Fraser River outflow towards San Juan Island, and mainly areas north of Bellingham, but sometimes this can curve down into Bellingham. But we shouldn't have to worry about that this time around. Just a little heads up for anyone here in Whatcom and San Juan counties. Expecting it to get pretty breezy tonight with that outflow. Looking at some of your guys' updates. So yeah, winds anemic, as expected. Do we have any precip in the last hour? Just in the last hour, if we narrow this selection down a little bit, the selection becomes even more isolated. Yeah, Randy with Whatcom County Weather does have a great diagram. I was checking that out in one of his live streams, and he shows it off really well. He'll most likely show it off tonight, and, you know, Keith, if you want to give him a buzz, remind him to show that off. I'll most likely be up this time around to check in on his live stream for a little bit. So I'll probably pop in there and say hello to everybody once Randy goes live tonight. But yeah, a lot of hit or miss showers just in the last hour. Last 24 hours here. Again, ignore that and ignore that. Strange said around 4 p.m. I noticed a bit of slushy rain coming down. 40 degrees. I was shocked that there was slush raining down. That's the beauty of that's the beauty of microclimates. You may have been the only one down there to see the slushy rain, but no one else got it. It's freezing outside. It's supposed to get to 31 here in Everett tonight. Yeah, I mentioned earlier that some areas are expecting a freeze tonight. Combine that with some fog already forming. There's a chance of freezing fog across parts of the I-5 corridor, mainly south of Tacoma tonight, just as a little added heads up to everyone. But we may see better chances of widespread fog Sunday night into Monday morning. At least that's what model guidance is showing right now. So, yeah, most areas, especially away from the water, will probably start to lean towards freezing. And some areas, especially those sheltered river valleys inland, like the Nisqually, for example, are probably going to get a few degrees below freezing and develop some fog tonight. A GFS 0Z just started rendering. That's a good sign. Let's see here. I was going to pull this one up. Yeah, the NAM model that I'm about to show you is a little more aggressive from what I can see on the cold compared to the HER model. When these blue areas pop up, those are areas at or below freezing. See, even 29 down here along the White River, just west of Enumclaw and a little bit northwest of Buckley here. This would be at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. So it's going to take a little bit for the air to warm up, and even then it's not going to warm up very much down here. It'll get into the mid to upper 40s in the Seattle area during game time, so overall should be a comfortable game time experience up there, and no rain expected either. So for anyone going to the game tomorrow, it should be an overall pleasant experience outside. And then see these pockets of freezing and sub-freezing air again. 7 a.m. Monday morning. Again, mainly away from the water. Over the water, it's going to be in the 40s. Some pockets of 30s here and there. And it's a really cold air up here downstream of that Fraser River outflow as well. See, it's got around 28 degrees for Ferndale at 7 a.m. on Monday morning. But this model here does a pretty good job of showing the river valleys and exaggerating their effects. Just depends on your model of choice. Just realized again, I was on the wrong model run, like a doof. So let's go over that one more time, because that was the previous run. Now we're on the current run, and it shows colder. So he's starting to show these blue contours down here in the Chehalis River Valley too, at or below freezing. This is 1 a.m. on Monday. Same ordeal up here along the I-5 corridor inland too. Pockets of freezing or sub-freezing air along I-5 and I-405. This is early in the morning on Monday though. Now we don't heat up very much. Some areas may not even hit 40 degrees on Monday. And then this is tomorrow morning's forecast. See some pockets of freezing air here and there. Tacoma's at 34, Seattle's at 36, Everett's at freezing. Mount Vernon's at 34. This would be at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Then by game time, we're up to around 45 at SeaTac. By the end of the game, still hanging in the mid 40s, and then we start to cool down pretty quick as we head towards the overnight hours in the Monday. We'll probably have some fog to talk about as well. See, this model picks up pretty good on the fog chances. So some areas of freezing fog possible tonight as well as tomorrow night and early morning. Just a heads up for anyone commuting along the I-5 corridor, all the way down towards the Longview area. All right, just hit 40 likes on Facebook. Thank you guys. Really helps the algorithm. It's also mentioned too, technically the Black Friday deals are still live. Guys, it's a little bit sad. I still haven't had a single sale on anything, any of the new Black Friday items that just came out. It's also sad too that they struck down one of my designs because it said Marine on it. Apparently this site is extremely against anything that says Marine on it, even if it's Marine Push. You know, I gave the Facebook subscribers a little sneak peek view at the Marine Push design I was releasing, and Spreadshop struck it down. And then there was a viewer, I don't remember exactly who it was. It might have been Julie, but she specially requested one of these designs for a shirt, as far as I know, for an immediate family member that says, "My wife watches weather streamers." So I made that design custom for that one person. So hopefully they do reach out and clarify if this design is what they wanted to see for their shirt. Yeah, I also have the Big Dark and Storm Train. So if you guys are interested, Black Friday deal goes all the way through Sunday, through tomorrow. 30% off everything on 70 plus. And for Cyber Week, Monday through Friday, 20% off everything. Starting on Monday. So just thought I'd put that out there for you guys real quick. You guys would also like to help support Puget Sound Stormwatch, that would be a great way to do it. Yeah, the models here are showing the fog filling in mainly south of Tacoma overnight as we go into the early morning hours, and then spreading down into the I-5 corridor of Cowlitz, Lewis, and Thurston counties when the sun starts to rise. And it looks like it may take a while for that fog to burn off down here. Some areas may not even burn off at all, if this model is correct. So it takes that next system to come through and stir up the air, and that burns off the fog around the area. So yeah, a little bit of clearing in the high clouds right now, but those high clouds are moving in again. All of the precipitation, for the most part, has moved over to the eastern part of the state, so that should be it until Monday. Should be it. All right. Hey, does anyone have anything else that they'd like to bring up? Any questions, whether it's weather related or personal? Because if not, then we're probably going to start to wrap it up here very soon. Looks like most of the Facebook audience has already started to leave for the night. For some reason, my follower counter is not updating as frequently as it should. Okay, see a couple of comments coming in. Corey Hoffman on Facebook. Are we going to see snow this Christmas? Way too soon, but the current indications are leaning towards no. It's looking like the snow may hold off until January, if we even get snow. William Gatlin on YouTube. Next big storm anticipated. Not anytime soon by the looks of it. I'm watching next weekend pretty closely for any changes. Next weekend could feature a few weather systems coming in. Nothing looks particularly strong at the moment, but it just has several weather systems in rapid succession from Friday through Monday of this next week. Now, we'll have to watch the development of that closely because any changes could be significant to our weather around the area. Anything big on the horizon? Outside of that, not looking like it. You know, again, the GFS is a big wild card, the American model, just because it's been going on its own little fantasy land for the last couple of weeks. And it really hasn't had any hits compared to the European model, which for the most part has reigned superior over it in almost every category. But the GFS does have its occasional wins, and if you want snow anytime soon, then you better start rooting for the GFS. Even if it seems a little delusional, that would be your best chance for snow. Yeah, don't worry, Kim Leonard, we're not seeing any indication of big wind events anytime soon. It's a little bit unusual for a weak La Nina year, but usually we have the ridging set up over here when we have La Nina. Then that La Nina is expected to turn into a neutral year by the time we start getting into next year, into the next calendar year. And we also have to watch that Matt and Julian oscillation as well. You guys have probably heard a little more of that going around too. Looks like we're going into phase 8 out of 8 of the Matt and Julian oscillation, and we want to be back in the phases 1 or 2 for the best chance of snow around here. Luckily, it can go from 8 to 7 or 8 to 1. So I would root for it to go from phase 8 to phase 1 for the best chance of getting any frozen precipitation around the lowlands. Of course, there's a lot more factors than that, but that's a good place to start. I want to see if I can pull up a forecast for the MJO real quick. I'm not finding anything that's easy to read. Still a lot that I need to learn as well on the MJO. My immediate concern isn't the snow, but when we get heavy black ice storms and sub-freezing temps that hang on. Yeah, that is true. Of course, I think we all remember January of 2012. That's the strongest ice storm that I've ever lived through. Sometimes worse than the windstorm. Yeah, I just remember standing outside my backyard and watching limbs fall off the trees. I'd hear a crack and then just see a massive limb fall after that. And I remember that the wind also started blowing a little bit after too, but thankfully most of the ice had already melted off. Because imagine getting strong winds on top of the ice that already accumulated. That would have been a doomsday scenario when it comes to winter weather. Yeah, I've heard about ice storms in the past, but I'm just talking about when I was alive, because I was born in late '99, so I remember hearing about ice storms in the '80s and '90s as well. Yeah, really the only two memorable ice storms I can think of are 2012 and 2022, but 2022 wasn't even hugely significant. That was the image I showed you guys of my vehicle caked in ice. That was December 23rd of 2022, I believe. Just right before Christmas, we had that little lower end ice storm around here. Yeah, 2012 was pretty bad. I remember that. I know my place was out of power for at least a whole day. It was either a day or 2 days before the power was restored, but just remember how heavily the branches were being weighed down for the trees all around and seeing just a glazing of ice across everything. It was really incredible to see in real life. But I just hope we don't have to see anything of that magnitude anytime soon, if ever again. Keith says, it was no fun driving from SeaTac to Mount Vernon during a snowstorm. Couldn't see the lines on the highway. Yeah, when it comes to that, you really just have to guess. Adam Ferris on Facebook says, that one was bad. Power was out here for over 50 hours. It was dark, and all I kept hearing was that popping noise. The last bad one before that was in '96 in November before Thanksgiving. Just got my driver's license. Yeah, that year sounds familiar for sure. It was either '96 or '98. I remember a pretty significant snowstorm. But '96 sounds a lot more familiar. William Gatlin says, we need to raise some money to get you a generator so you can stay online during these storm outages. Actually, it's funny you mentioned that because my setup and my internet are protected by uninterruptible power supplies, aka UPSs. It won't be enough to keep me on long enough to stream more than like 10 minutes before they go into emergency shutdown, but it would be enough to make sure I didn't have any power interruptions during a stream. Like any short-term power interruptions, any brownouts, anything like that that could interrupt the stream, if you know what I mean. So I have one large UPS here that's powering this setup, and then my Wi-Fi router is out there. It's a T-Mobile 5G access point, and it has its own UPS out there as well. So the only reason I'd be losing internet long term in a power outage is if the backup power for the 5G towers covered by T-Mobile go out. So yeah, don't worry. We don't need to raise any money for a generator for me. And besides, I live in an apartment as well, so a generator is not feasible for me over here. Overall, pretty good offer though. Keith says, I feel old. When I lived on the East Coast, I remember being in the blizzard of 1978. Yeah, to be honest with everyone here, I've lived here all my life. Born and raised here in the Federal Way, Milton area, so. Yeah, generator would be out of the question. I'm perfectly fine with my battery backup UPSs right now. You know, and actually my main UPS here went 9 years without a battery replacement and has been fine the entire time. It has saved me a few times during power outages. But I haven't had that really long-term power outage that has put it to the max test. Like to test the full shutdown capabilities and everything. Usually the power comes right back on if it turns off. And I've never lost power, knock on wood, during a stream either. So maybe there's a first for that one of these days, but so far, since I've been streaming full-time, or just streaming at all for the Puget Sound Stormwatch brand, I have never lost power. And once again, knock on wood for that. William, it's actually made by CyberPower. So my main UPS here is a CyberPower, believe it's 1500 PFC LCD. So it's a 1500 volt amp or 900 watt uninterruptible power supply. And then the one out in the living room that keeps the router and the entertainment center up out there. Hey, Keith, I knocked on wood, so that immediately negates it. But the one outside is an Amazon Basics 800 volt amp or 600 watt UPS that I picked up for Prime Day back in July. Yeah, CyberPower is yet to fail me. Again, knock on wood for that. Adam Ferris, Facebook says, I can't forget that because I had to use cold tap water to open my car door. The apple tree that was next door to the place I lived at, McKinley Hill in East Tacoma, 48th and McKinley at the time. Adam, I'm not sure if you finished that thought because that sentence doesn't make sense initially. But, you know, feel free to clarify what you meant on that because I think that sentence may have gotten cut off. And Michelle Johnson on Facebook says, all is calm, all is bright. But yeah, maybe I'll be live streaming one time during that signature windstorm or winter storm where we finally lose power here at the studio. I know most of my lights will shut off because they're not on battery power, but I know that one of my studio lights here and all of my monitors and my PC and a few of my lights are on the backup battery power supply. So it would be enough initially, hopefully, if all goes well during a test. And by test, I mean a real event, to have just enough time to shut down the stream, sign off, and get any closing thoughts out of the way before doing a forced shutdown. So maybe that'll happen one of these days, potentially. Oh, yeah, that makes sense, Adam, saying, forgot to say the tree fell over. That's what I figured what you were going to say. Or something similar to it. Thank you for clarifying. Yeah, that's weird. My clock usually counts the followers, but it hasn't been notifying of followers recently, so I'm going to try to do a restart. Yeah, the ice was what made it fall over, and it was loud. Oh, I could imagine it was pretty loud. I remember how loud the limbs were, just hearing everything split off the main part of the tree. Sonia says, eventually I want to get a Jackery or Blue Eddy backup battery. Never know when we will have a bad windstorm or the big earthquake. Yeah, I'd also like to recommend EcoFlow as well. Heard a lot of good reviews on EcoFlow battery backup units. Exactly, just as William just said, EcoFlow makes nice battery systems too. I also carry a DieHard Platinum 1150 amp jump starter inverter and compressor combo in the back of my vehicle as well. Comes in real handy as a jump starter. For sure. It came in handy on Thanksgiving because my vehicle had been sitting for a little bit and my voltage had gotten down to about 10 volts, so it wasn't going to crank. So I just immediately hooked up the jump starter box and it fired off like no one's business. You know, you just got to make sure to charge it at least once a month to a full charge. It's very important. You do not want that battery to go flat prematurely I just did a replacement on that battery for the first time in a little, like around 5.5 years, back in March when the battery went flat completely. Yeah, so I have all new batteries in my UPSs and my main jump starter. Yeah, it's invaluable to have in an emergency, for sure. Okie doke. Let's see here. Always feels nice to go off the weather tangent from time to time. The crazy to think, in February, too, we'll be celebrating 13 years of Puget Sound Stormwatch. They do have a great system, but a bit out of my price range right now. Yeah, EcoFlow is expensive. 100%. They are extremely expensive. I'm lucky I got majority of my equipment before I made the jump over to Puget Sound Stormwatch full time. Because the financial transition has been anything but easy. And Adam says the power was out that morning when that happened also. Didn't see another one until 2012. You don't forget them. Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth there, for sure. Some things that you see during storms, you just will never forget. Don't think financial transitions are favorable for anyone. Yeah, I like to think that I didn't make a mistake making the transition as soon as I did, but partially I did make a mistake because I was a little bit slow to get fully transitioned over to full-time online, if that makes sense. Like I had saved up enough money as an experiment to try this thing out for a few months, and I'm right at the end of where I want to be, and I haven't quite met. Well, no, I'm extremely far from any of my financial goals, for sure, doing this full time. Especially with the weather being slow like this right now, the ratings are, I wouldn't say at an all-time low, but they're at a month-long low. If you know what I'm saying really makes sense. So, you know, if you need anything clarified, please feel free to bring it up. But basically what I'm trying to say was I was expecting a little more support through the time, but I guess I was a little more humbled to see that that wasn't going to be the case. So I may have to make the transition back again to an actual daytime job just to make sure I don't end up on the street doing this. Just to say it wisely. Yeah, that's right. Randy's live stream is coming up in about 20 minutes or so. Unless they're good transitions. Yeah, the truth is, when I made the transition, I was kind of expecting, you know, and I'm not going to be greedy by any means, but I was expecting quite a bit more help from the viewership, I guess. You know, and it always bugs me to mention this because every time I even insinuate talking about money on this page, I get messages from people saying, oh, you're going to have a massive following if you start asking for money. And just some borderline threatening messages from people saying that they will no longer support the page, you know, and it can sometimes be discouraging. But I try to look past that and just think, you know, instead, I'm more grateful for the support I do have. And for everyone watching right now, this wouldn't be possible without you guys watching and helping out. You know, and that makes me feel much more humble about the situation. All right, Keith, have a great night. Thank you so much again for tuning in. I'll probably wrap things up myself by 8:30 and then go hop on to Randy's stream and go check in with the Whatcom County weather team, see what they have to say. What's the worst winter month for our weather? Asks Kim. Statistically, I'd like to say December. But I'd have to go back through years, like decades of records to come up with a plausible theory for that. But I just say from my experience, usually December. But January is also a pretty bad month as well. Yeah, like Sonia said, good night, Keith. Take care. Thank you so much again for tuning in and for supporting. Where's my cursor? Okay, there it is. Ooh, jumped up to 15 likes on YouTube since I last checked. Thank you guys for liking and sharing. If you guys like streams like this, you know, just be sure you know exactly what to do. The drill is like, share, comment, subscribe, ring that bell. Do whatever you need to do. Wow, my post about the Fraser River outflow this morning got 25,000 views, or 25,000 plays, what Facebook just told me. That's huge. I think that's one of the most popular posts since the windstorm last month. Oh boy. But yeah, not much to talk about for weather. We're really just trying to nitpick things in the extended forecast that we can focus on. So looking like a little bit more of a soaker Thursday into Friday, possibly. Just depending on how the forecasts shape up. But it could be a little more active around the area this next upcoming weekend, Friday through Monday. You know, a lot of details to iron out, and we'll hopefully get those ironed out in the next few days. If we can start seeing some better model agreements, because right now the agreement is just not there whatsoever. Alrighty. Let's check the progress on that GFS run. Out to 132 hours on the new GFS, so we can at least see through the next 5.5 days. I want to check to see if anything's different on this run compared to the last. So this is the new 0Z, just rendering right now. Still showing some rain around the area Monday night, Tuesday morning, so that stays the same. Ooh, that would be interesting. Looking like a little stronger system could come through Thursday night and Friday morning if what the new GFS is saying turns out to be true. And see the differences here. It shows this system coming in a little bit stronger compared to the last run. If that trend stays, that could be something to talk about this coming weekend. You know, not a terrible pressure gradient with that either. The GFS, albeit being a lower resolution model, Does show some areas of 35 to 40 mile per hour wind gusts down here in the South Sound, potentially. But still need a lot of model runs to show the same thing before we start jumping the gun on this. Still a lot of variables to work out, such as run-to-run agreement and model-to-model agreement. But we're not to that stage yet. You know, this is just my initial reaction to viewing this model for the first time. But it will be something to watch for sure, because this system also brings heavy mountain snow to Snoqualmie and Stevens. You know, this would be at 7 a.m. on Friday the 5th. So a little bit under a week. And then we'll have to watch what happens with this next system, but we're just waiting for those frames to render right now. Certainly something to watch. We'll just see which direction it progresses in, if it regresses or if it progresses. So as we start going into the afternoon period that next Friday, still showing some heavier rain coming through. Be interesting to see what happens in the coming days with the model runs. Eventually here in the next hour or so, the next European run should be rendering as well. The European and the AI forecast system. All right, guys, we just hit the 2-hour marker on both streams. Does anyone else have any last-minute questions or concerns they'd like to bring up before we start wrapping things up for the night? Really impressed that that reel hit 25,000 plays. I guess it's not too often I post about Whatcom County, so I guess it just got out to larger reach. You know, I tagged my folks at Whatcom County Weather as well as the Whidbey Island weather page on there too. William Gatlin says, have a good night. You as well. Take care. Thanks again for everything. Adam Ferris says, need that good mountain snow. Yeah, we're in quite a mountain snow deficit this year, similar to how 2014 to 2015 played out. Like, remember the year before, 2013, 2014 was a really good year for mountain snowpack. And 2014 featured a lot of river flooding as well. I remember back in March when we had those river floods around the area. March of 2014. But 2015 was a pretty subpar year for mountain snowpack and water overall around Western Washington. We did have a pretty good event in November of 2015, though. I remember when I was making a transition between houses, and we had a big river flood event in the middle of November of 2015. So I think the 2015-2016 water year was around average, if not a little over average, too. So far, not looking good for our water year as of now. But that could change. Could very well change. Yeah, Sonia says, thank you everyone for joining us. Hope to see you on the next stream. Good night, everyone. And she says, good night, Will. Thank you for your support. Likewise. Corey Hoffman says, good night, drive safe, and pack your patience. Absolutely, because I'm hearing of some areas of fog already forming around the South Sound. Someone down in the Olympia area already reported fog within the last hour or so. So if you do have to commute tonight, tomorrow morning, or overnight, Sunday into Monday, do be prepared for some fog and some possible freezing fog in spots. So it could be slick around the area. Just as a little added heads up. You know, always use your low beams when driving in fog and give extra space between you and the cars around you. That's the best advice I can offer for you guys. Kim says, thank you so much. Always appreciated. Thank you, Kim, for tuning back in again. Yeah, if anything changes in the forecast, like anything majorly changes in the forecast, I will for sure let you guys know. Especially if it's in the short term, I will let you guys know. But if you guys want a greater extended look into the forecast and a little more behind the scenes content, please consider becoming a Puget Sound Stormwatch subscriber on Facebook. And I also cross-post those posts over to my Patreon as well. If you don't have Facebook, you can support Puget Sound Stormwatch on Patreon, as seen here. See all of my recent posts here, including the Fraser River outflow post here that made 7 hours ago. All of my Facebook posts are cross-posted here to Patreon. Sonia says, thank you, Anthony, for a great stream. Thank you, Sonia, for tuning in and being a great moderator. So yeah, guys, I think that will just about do it for this evening's stream. I'm going to go ahead and get ready to hop on Randy's stream. I'll just be in the comments section. If you guys see me over there, go ahead and say hello. Yeah, go ahead and show support. Randy and the team are trying to grow their YouTube channel. They're around 350 subscribers right now. They could use a lot more than that. But yeah, go ahead and subscribe to Whatcom County Weather on YouTube. But you know, they have a really good Facebook following too. They have 57,000 plus followers on Facebook, so a really considerably large page up there. But still, they could use more. So go ahead and support Randy and the team. You know, they make really great weather forecasts up there for Whatcom, Skagit, San Juan counties and surrounding areas. So with all that being said, Anthony here with Puget Sound Stormwatch. Thank you all again so much for tuning in tonight. Depending on how the forecast trend, we may have another live stream Monday night, potentially. I do want to begin live streaming more regularly. We're really trying to build the watch hours here on YouTube because we're not quite to monetization benefits yet. And once we do hit that point, it will help considerably in the future. But we're still, you know, we still need some work. So, yeah, appreciate everything, guys. Have a great night.